Over the last couple months, Souls RNG has managed to lose over 120,000 concurrent players, but how and why is this happening? In today's video, I'm going to go over everything that has happened in Souls RNG over the last couple months and then explain the reason for this massive decrease in player count. I'm also going to suggest some solutions to the issues that I bring up in this video, that way the video still contributes positively to the game and its community. And with that, the very first issue that needs to be addressed is the update schedule. This issue alone has been one of, if not the biggest contributors to the decrease in player count recently. The game heavily relies on the demand for new and rare auras, and once a player finally rolls one of their favorite auras, they lose a large part of the reason why they were even grinding the game in the first place. And it doesn't help that the eras are so drastically spread apart. Era 7 released on May 10th, which resulted in the game's peak concurrent player count of 154,000 concurrent players. The game did not receive a single new content update for nearly 2 months, with Era 8 just releasing 51 days later on June 30th. This caused a large majority of the hype to die down, resulting in a loss of 40,000 concurrent players between the two updates. Then came one of Souls RNG's biggest mistakes, the 0.5 update. They introduced Era 8.5 just 33 days later, which while at first was well received, resulted in many disappointed players in their lowest player count of all time of 34,000 concurrent players, an insane 120,000 player decrease since the release of Era 7. This is also part of why many of the older players were upset about Era 9. After waiting over a month for the next era, Era 9 was released with less than half of the content that we were initially promised. The update brought 12 new auras, 2 new gears, and a new biome. And on top of all that, they decided to nerf the biome randomizer for some reason. Now here's our problem with this. I've been developing on Roblox for a couple of years now, and I can very confidently say that this update should not have taken any more than a week to complete with just only one person working on the update. And their team consists of 10 developers. Now in terms of solutions for this issue, I do not think that the answer is to hire more developers, because if they can't work efficiently with 10 developers, then that is just simply not the issue. I think the very first thing that they need to address is the teamwork in the team, because if there's any inactive developers holding the team back, then those people need to be removed from the team. And listen, I'm not entirely against the ideas of eras taking 1 to 2 months to release, because if they did come out every other week, then they just wouldn't be special anymore. However, I do think that the eras should focus on bringing in a lot more auras. 10 to 25 new rare auras each era would be way more than enough to keep people engaged. In between the release of new eras, I think a really good way to keep players engaged is to add a new global aura every single week. And that way players won't get uninterested quickly and leave. And one final thing that I have to say about the update schedule, I really do not think that the developers should be spending so much time on updates like PvP or boss raids. Because don't forget, the whole premise of the game is to collect rare auras. I honestly think that the community would be much happier with more auras rather than just additional PvP mechanics. But moving on, the next issue that I want to address is the lack of communication from the developers. Now this issue sort of ties into the update schedule issue, but this is important in its own way. The problem is the community rarely gets any information from the developers about upcoming updates, and when we do, the communication is poorly worded or is in regards to an update that is coming way later in the future. For example, the developers gave out multiple sneak peeks for Era 9.5 before Era 9 was even finished. This is part of the reason why so many people were upset about Era 9, because people expected 9.5 content to be included in Era 9. Now the solution to this is extremely straightforward. The developers should just create some form of roadmap that gives details of upcoming updates along with an estimated release date. On top of this, the developers should also let the community know whenever there needs to be a delay on an update, that way the players aren't just left in the dark about development progress. If those two issues can be fixed, then I have no doubt that Souls RNG can easily regain the hundreds of thousands of players that it once had. But until then, I'm going to move on and start making other content on other Roblox games, so please double check if you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of my content going forward. Peace, guys.